The royal emissaries relentlessly scour the kingdom for the mysterious woman who dropped her glass slipper at the grand ball. The kingdom anticipates that the woman who perfectly fits the delicate shoe will officially become the prince's destined princess. Expectations soar as the legendary destined princess is finally on the verge of being revealed. Adelina quietly reflects that this fated princess is definitely not her. She vividly recalls her mother aggressively demanding her attendance at the royal ball to compete for the prince's hand. Despite his initial lack of enthusiasm, the prince suddenly fell madly in love with a beautiful girl during the event. Before he could secure her identity, the mysterious girl vanished at midnight, leaving only a single glass slipper behind. Prince Alexis of the Miracle Kingdom joyfully discovers the owner of the shoe, triumphantly declaring her his destined princess. The elusive girl the royal court has been desperately hunting finally stands before them. To Adelina's utter shock, the destined royal bride is none other than her stepsister, Ella. Their mother urgently demands they rush to the castle to hold the wedding immediately, marveling at Ella's striking platinum blonde beauty. Adelina silently watches the chaotic scene unfold, genuinely hoping for a happy ending for her stepsister. Shattering all royal expectations, Ella boldly apologizes and completely rejects the prince's proposal. The unexpected rejection strikes the room like lightning, leaving everyone utterly bewildered. Ella boldly confesses that her heart actually belongs to a wizard instead of the royal heir. The shocking mention of a wizard instantly leaves the entire assembly completely speechless. A sudden, roaring magical disturbance violently shatters the tense atmosphere of the manor. Someone gasps in absolute horror as a bizarre figure prepares to make a dramatic entrance. A strange man suddenly manifests out of thin air, loudly declaring he has come to claim his honey. The eccentric arrival is instantly recognized as the very wizard Ella spoke of moments before. The room freezes in stunned silence as the mysterious wizard stands confidently before the paralyzed crowd. The wizard affectionately embraces Ella, assuring her he would never leave her behind. Onlookers watch in absolute disbelief as Ella happily hugs a man they consider a complete pervert. Adelina desperately cries out, begging Ella to wait a moment before doing anything rash. Ella turns back briefly, affectionately calling out Adelina's name with a soft smile. Ella thanks Adelina for being the only kind person in the house, wishing her eternal happiness before departing. The devastated Prince Alexis stammers in absolute disbelief over losing his destined princess on the verge of their wedding. Ella firmly reiterates her apology, declaring she cannot marry the prince because she truly loves the wizard. A loud shriek echoes through the estate as chaotic magic begins to forcefully sweep the couple away. Begging forgiveness for her selfishness, Ella bids a final, dramatic farewell to her stunned family. Someone screams Ella's name as the unbelievable reality of her sudden departure finally sets in. The wizard and Ella completely upend the expected happily ever after by disappearing into the clouds. Chaos immediately erupts as furious commands are shouted to hurry and chase after the escaping couple. The devastated prince stands paralyzed in shock as the woman he searched the entire kingdom for simply runs away. Blind panic sets in as the remaining characters frantically wonder what they are supposed to do now. The situation worsens drastically as someone reveals a carrier pigeon was already sent to the castle announcing the princess was found. Adelina immediately realizes the catastrophic political disaster that is about to crash down upon them all. The beautiful prince has been publicly humiliated by having his destined princess elope with another man right in front of him. They realize with absolute dread that the entire kingdom will laugh at them if this scandalous truth gets out. A lingering, terrifying question remains as everyone anxiously wonders what the heartbroken Prince Alexis will do next. Someone coldly questions if the unfortunate sister will suffice as a royal replacement. Adelina quickly confirms her identity to the imposing royal guards. Dread washes over Adelina as an official loudly declares the glass slipper fits her perfectly. The royal guards ruthlessly prepare to take the bewildered girl away with them. Adelina recoils in sheer panic at the sudden, forceful abduction. Prince Alexis boldly announces he has finally found his destined princess at the Viscount's estate. With steely eyes, the prince coldly threatens to punish her entire family if she refuses his proposal. Terrified for her life, ordinary stepsister Adelina reluctantly agrees to take the runaway Ella's place. The royal carriage rapidly speeds toward the imposing palace. A servant formally welcomes Lady Adelina as she arrives at the Grand Royal Palace. A guard announces the prince's strict orders to hold the wedding ceremony immediately. The palace staff rapidly confirm that all elaborate wedding preparations are already complete. Adelina mentally questions the unbelievably fast pacing of the demanding royal prince. Adelina nervously walks through the lavish, intimidating halls of her new home. Whispers immediately erupt among the palace staff, wondering if she is truly the destined princess. Courtiers rudely gossip that the new bride is far plainer than they originally imagined. Someone harshly whispers that her plainness makes sense since she is merely a stand-in. A steward abruptly instructs Lady Adelina to follow the maids to change her attire. Determined maids quickly surround the overwhelmed bride to begin the extensive transformation. Adelina submissively yields to the overwhelming and immediate royal demands. Adelina nervously wonders if Ella's differently sized dress will actually fit her frame. Adelina groans in pure agony as maids forcefully squeeze her into the excruciatingly tight dress. She frantically realizes the suffocating gown would have been too tight even for the petite Ella. Furious, she silently curses the prince for boldly estimating the dress size purely by sight. The grueling and agonizing bridal preparations continue without any mercy. She realizes barely a few hours have passed since the prince first noticed her presence. Trapped in her heavy gown, Adelina quickly accepts she can no longer run away. Prince Alexis steps forward and arrogantly addresses his new bride as Everina. Adelina awkwardly corrects the careless prince by stating her actual name. The arrogant prince bluntly dismisses her correction by stating he does not care about her name. He firmly insists she is the one he fell for because the glass slipper miraculously fit her. She silently fumes that the tyrant gave her absolutely no option to refuse the marriage. Swallowing her pride, Adelina formally bows to his absolute royal command. The grand announcer heralds the dramatic entrance of His Highness Alexis and his bride. Adelina stews in disbelief that the prince dismissed her name despite his past politeness toward Ella. She mentally congratulates Ella for successfully avoiding marriage to this terrible man. Adelina bitterly acknowledges his stunningly handsome looks cannot hide his awful personality. The priest solemnly asks if they swear to devote their true hearts in sickness and in health. Adelina darkly jokes to herself that she will never suffer from secretly falling in love with him. The priest dramatically prepares to finalize the grand royal wedding ceremony. The priest solemnly announces the time for the sacred vows kiss. Prince Alexis intensely stares down at his newly wedded and visibly nervous bride. He leans in closer to Adelina as the heavy atmosphere of the royal wedding surrounds them. Adelina quickly realizes the prince looks just as unwilling and miserable to be doing this as she feels. The reluctant groom slowly closes the distance between them to fulfill his royal duty. Bracing herself for the inevitable, Adelina nervously anticipates where the forced kiss will actually land. She frantically prays that the arrogant royal will at least spare her lips during this awkward formality. To her absolute shock, Prince Alexis forcefully captures her lips in a sudden, breathless kiss. Adelina mentally waves a tragic goodbye to her first kiss as the prince boldly claims her lips. The jarring suddenness of the intimate moment leaves her completely numb and utterly devoid of any romantic impression. Following the chaotic ceremony, the newlywed couple finally retreats to their private chambers for the dreaded wedding night. Prince Alexis sits silently on the lavish bed, brooding heavily in the quiet room. Adelina nervously attempts to offer him a drink to break the suffocating silence. The prince completely ignores her polite gesture, staring into the distance with a darkened expression. Adelina cautiously observes his terrible mood, trying to decode the silent storm brewing behind his eyes. She astutely deduces that the harsh regret of marrying a stand-in after Ella's brutal rejection is finally crushing him. Frustrated by his delayed realization, she wishes he had regained his senses before officially binding them together. Determined to survive this mess, Adelina resolves to clarify the strict boundaries of their accidental marriage. Gathering her courage, she gently interrupts his brooding to demand a serious conversation. The prince suddenly snaps back, coldly warning her that this marriage will never include his love. Adelina instantly agrees without hesitation, smoothly assuring the bewildered prince that she expects absolutely zero affection. Annoyed by his staggering narcissism, she bluntly reminds him that she was forcibly kidnapped to replace her runaway sister. She firmly classifies their grand royal wedding as a disastrous accident rather than a romantic fairy tale. Offering him an easy out, she suggests he completely ignore her existence while fulfilling his royal duties. Prince Alexis stares at her in sheer confusion, completely thrown off by her lack of royal ambition. She happily encourages him to take any mistress or concubine he desires without worrying about her feelings. Proposing a practical deal, Adelina promises absolute silence and a future divorce in exchange for basic survival necessities. Dropping to the floor, she delivers a perfectly calculated and deeply sincere apology for Ella's catastrophic elopement. While outwardly prostrating, she silently blames both her chaotic sister and the dangerously impulsive prince for this mess. She executes this dramatic apology purely for her own absolute self-preservation against royal wrath. The heavy silence stretches on too long, making Adelina sweat as the room's atmosphere turns dangerously lethal. Prince Alexis glares down at her bowing form with an intensely unreadable and dark expression. Panic instantly floods her veins as she fears she just violently reignited his fiery royal temper. Her mind spirals into sheer terror, imagining an immediate execution order falling upon her neck. The prince heavily sighs and commands her to lift her head, genuinely confused by her extreme prostration. To her utter relief, he bluntly admits that Ella's scandalous disappearance is not actually her fault. Adelina exhales a massive sigh of relief, thankful that she successfully dodged an immediate and bloody execution. She firmly reiterates her formal apology on behalf of her stepsister to solidify her innocence. She cunningly registers this dramatic apology as an insurance policy to prevent any future beheadings. Exhausted by the bizarre turn of events, Prince Alexis orders her to take the bed while he takes the couch. Adelina gladly accepts that they will be sleeping in entirely separate beds for the night. She briefly hesitates, realizing etiquette dictates she offer the plush bed to the royal prince. Discarding royal etiquette, she decisively takes him at his word and claims the bed for herself. Adelina quickly settles into the comfortable mattress while Prince Alexis awkwardly shifts on the narrow sofa. The newlywed couple lies in total silence, separated by the heavy tension filling the dark bedroom. Whispering softly into the quiet room, Adelina instinctively bids the brooding prince a good night. She instantly regrets breaking the silence, realizing the greeting slipped out purely from ingrained habit. Prince Alexis shifts slightly in the darkness, quietly acknowledging her unexpected and soft words. He stares up at the ceiling, heavily burdened by the sudden and chaotic turn of his life. Adelina watches his shadowed figure, mentally exhausted from surviving the frantic events of the day. She firmly closes her eyes, not actually expecting the prideful royal to return her polite greeting. Surrendering to her overwhelming fatigue, Adelina finally gives up on overthinking and completely relaxes her body. She bitterly recalls the chaotic memory of abruptly becoming the prince's bride in place of her stepsister. Correcting her own memory, she remembers brutally cowering before his terrifying and absolute royal command. Welcoming the morning light, Adelina prepares to officially begin her unexpected life as a royal bride. A royal maid suddenly approaches Lady Adelina with a firm and highly serious expression. The maid formally announces Prince Alexis's strict orders to immediately relocate her to a detached palace. Adelina blinks in sheer confusion at the abrupt command to leave the grand main residence. She looks back at the towering and magnificent main palace where the royal family officially resides. Boarding a grand carriage, Adelina begins the surprisingly long journey to her designated new home. The carriage endlessly rolls through the vast estate, putting incredible distance between her and the prince. She finally arrives at a beautiful, isolated white mansion peacefully nestled deep within the royal grounds. Surveying the serene estate, Adelina quickly realizes this quiet mansion will be her permanent royal residence. She astutely deduces the regretful prince banished her to this distant location to completely avoid seeing her. Relegated to a mere decorative bride, Adelina gleefully realizes she has zero royal lessons or formal duties. Staring at her vast free time, she marvels at her completely empty and unburdened daily schedule. Trembling with sudden anticipation, Adelina struggles to process the incredible stroke of sheer luck. She absolutely rejoices, enthusiastically thanking the heavens for gifting her the ultimate carefree royal lifestyle. Eager to fully exploit this isolated paradise until her inevitable divorce, she excitedly ponders her new hobbies. A maid calmly confirms that the sprawling, untouched land surrounding the mansion completely belongs to Lady Adelina. Adelina gasps in total shock, unable to believe she now privately owns such a massive plot. She double-checks with the stoic servant, frantically ensuring this generous land grant is actually real. Overwhelmed by absolute joy, Adelina stares passionately at the wild and completely uncultivated fields. Her heart soars as she realizes she can finally achieve her lifelong dream of peaceful country living. She fondly remembers her deep childhood ambition to buy quiet farmland and live completely off the grid. Memories flood back of diligently devouring countless heavy books on agriculture and advanced farming techniques. She proudly recalls the countless hours she spent carefully nurturing her small but thriving personal garden. Suddenly, a crucial piece of financial information delivered by the prince's strict secretary flashes through her mind. She excitedly remembers she was granted an enormous and entirely free budget as the official crown princess. Dismissing expensive dresses and jewels, Adelina happily resolves to spend her massive royal budget entirely on farming. Realizing the true potential of her situation, Adelina decides to use her massive royal budget for entirely different purposes. A sweeping view reveals that the once barren royal land has undergone a massive and chaotic agricultural transformation. Chief Secretary Conrad stares in absolute shock, demanding to know what on earth is happening to the estate. The busy laborers suddenly freeze as they nervously notice Secretary Conrad's furious arrival. Conrad angrily demands to know who dared to alter Lady Adelina's land without proper royal permission. The workers hesitate nervously, struggling to find the right words to answer the furious secretary. A worker timidly explains that they are aggressively plowing fields under Lady Adelina's direct orders. Conrad stares in sheer disbelief, desperately trying to comprehend why the wild thicket is being terraformed. Meanwhile, a highly energetic Adelina cheerfully points out new directions for her massive landscaping project. She excitedly orders the thick grassy area to be completely converted into a lush pasture for grazing animals. Adelina eagerly points out spots for sunny crop fields and designates a distant lake to become a fishing pond. The captivated workers enthusiastically nod and immediately follow her ambitious agricultural commands. Conrad observes the incredibly bustling construction with a heavily conflicted and silent expression. A sudden smirk crosses Conrad's face as he realizes the crown princess's bizarre behavior is highly interesting. He orders his subordinate to report Adelina's daily activities before dramatically heading back to the castle. Adelina cheerfully notes the completed fences while excitedly waiting for her ordered livestock to arrive. A worker happily announces that Lady Adelina's requested animals have finally been delivered to the estate. Adelina eagerly greets the delivery of sheep, perfectly recommended as the best livestock for beginners. She rejoices enthusiastically, proudly declaring her dream ranch officially complete. Suddenly, Adelina pauses in confusion as she notices something strange hidden among the flock. A distinctly different, incredibly fluffy, and long-necked animal stares blankly back at her. The flustered merchants frantically bow and apologize to Lady Adelina for the unbelievable mix-up. A merchant nervously explains that a strange-looking sheep accidentally got mixed into the regular herd. Utterly charmed, Adelina softly marvels at the mysterious creature's adorable and completely round eyes. She happily waves off their frantic concerns, generously declaring she will buy the unusual animal as well. The shocked merchants stammer in pure disbelief at the princess's incredibly generous and unexpected offer. The relieved sellers quickly agree to arrange payment later while loudly praising the kind princess. Adelina shrewdly deduces the desperate merchants are simply glad to successfully offload the mysterious beast. A worried maid cautiously asks Lady Adelina if she is truly sure about keeping the bizarrely shaped sheep. Adelina excitedly corrects her maid, revealing the strange creature is actually a rare alpaca rather than a sheep. She enthusiastically explains that alpacas are rare southern animals highly prized for shearing and carrying loads. Thrilled by her unbelievable luck, Adelina eagerly promises to brush its incredibly fluffy fur later. The fluffy alpaca happily hums as it quickly settles into its massive new home. A group of excited maids nervously beg Lady Adelina for permission to pet the adorable alpaca. Adelina warmly grants them permission with a gentle smile, encouraging them to approach. The delighted maids gently pet the soft alpaca while Adelina completely understands their absolute joy. The newly established ranch bustles with lively energy as the happy animals settle in comfortably. Adelina happily notes that her tranquil fishing pond is also nearing its final stages of completion. A curious maid excitedly asks Lady Adelina what kind of seedlings she is preparing for her new vegetable garden. Adelina proudly reveals she intends to grow exotic vegetables to cook the foreign dishes she read about. Adelina discusses the influx of foreign food culture with her highly impressed maids. A maid praises Lady Adelina for being incredibly knowledgeable about both rare alpacas and exotic cuisines. Adelina excitedly proposes cooking a feast of foreign dishes for everyone to reward their hard work on the land. The delighted maids enthusiastically volunteer to help prepare the massive and exciting feast. The lively conversation quickly sparks an idea to organize a massive outdoor event where everyone can participate. the highly anticipated day of the grand outdoor event finally arrives. A grand prize featuring an adorable handmade wool mascot crafted by Lady Adelina is proudly displayed. The exciting Lady Adelina Big Fishing Tournament officially begins at the newly completed pond. A cheerful maid notes what a beautiful day it is as Adelina officially joins the bustling tournament. Anticipation heavily builds as the entire estate eagerly wonders who will claim the ultimate fishing victory. Adelina happily admits she probably will not catch anything but is completely thrilled to finally try fishing. A maid suddenly shouts in shock as Adelina's float violently plunges deep underwater. Adelina screams as a massive unseen force nearly drags her directly into the pond. The intense struggle whips the calm water into a violent frenzy as the unknown fish fiercely fights back. The surrounding crowd roars in absolute excitement as Lady Adelina successfully hooks a massive bite. Everyone watches with bated breath, frantically wondering if the princess can actually reel the beast in. Adelina desperately grips her bending rod, groaning under the incredible and stubborn weight of her catch. She fiercely pulls the heavy rod back with all her remaining physical strength. A gigantic fish suddenly erupts from the turbulent water in a spectacular and heavy splash. Adelina joyfully declares her ultimate victory as she proudly hauls the colossal fish ashore. The astounded crowd wildly cheers as Lady Adelina is officially declared the tournament winner with her huge catch. Adelina happily holds her fishing rod, thoroughly enjoying her unexpected and thrilling triumph. The thrilled maids happily celebrate her massive catch as Adelina graciously accepts her own adorable prize. Looking up at the clear sky, Adelina silently wonders if her runaway sister Ella is doing well. She recalls her initial terror of what would happen after being forced to marry the prince in Ella's place. Adelina smiles softly as she reflects on how drastically her terrifying situation has completely turned around. She gleefully realizes she has somehow miraculously obtained her absolute ideal life in the peaceful countryside. A gentle breeze blows as she happily basks in the exact leisurely lifestyle she always dreamed of. She abruptly remembers this perfect slow life is completely temporary until the prince inevitably finalizes their divorce. Adelina shrewdly wonders if she can extract a massive sum of compensation money from the upcoming separation. She eagerly plots to use the potential royal funds to permanently buy her own natural countryside estate. Adelina determinedly vows to flawlessly host the prince if he ever visits just to secure maximum compensation. Meanwhile, back at the Grand Palace, Prince Alexis violently sneezes while working at his desk. The sudden sneeze loudly echoes through the incredibly quiet and tense royal study. A concerned aide immediately asks His Highness if he has caught a sudden cold. Alexis quietly mutters that someone out there is likely gossiping about him. The prince heavily sighs, guessing that Adriana might be the one cursing his name. Secretary Conrad stares intensely at the prince with a deeply disappointed and highly judging expression. Conrad harshly corrects the prince for totally forgetting his own wife's name, sternly reminding him it is Adelina. The exhausted prince deeply regrets his incredibly hasty and disastrous marriage to the wrong sister. Overwhelmed by deep regret, Prince Alexis attempts to justify his terrible recent decisions to his royal staff. Secretary Conrad fiercely reprimands the royal for banishing Lady Adelina to a detached palace and completely ignoring her existence. Desperately defending his cowardly actions, the prince shouts that he could not bear to face the woman he forcibly married. He furiously demands if Conrad knows the shockingly cold words Adelina delivered on their disastrous wedding night. Alexis painfully recounts how his new bride firmly assured him she would never seek his royal love. Overcome with immense guilt, he tragically imagines her sobbing alone while mourning a lost lover he ruined. Snapping out of his dramatic self-pity, Alexis glares as his secretary suddenly bursts into a highly amused smirk. Dismissing the royal's needless worries, Conrad smoothly suggests the prince read the daily reports sent by Adelina's personal maid. Still stubbornly avoiding reality, Alexis coldly waves off the documents, claiming unproblematic reports require absolutely no royal attention. Conrad sharply reminds him that completely ignoring his own wife's situation will instantly arouse dangerous societal suspicions. The cunning secretary firmly insists that maintaining polite public appearances remains crucial even for an impending divorce. Reluctantly surrendering to Conrad's flawless logic, the defeated prince heavily sighs and finally accepts the detailed reports. Scanning the first shocking document, Alexis reads that his elegant bride is aggressively transforming the royal grounds into a bustling farm. His tragic mental image of a weeping, delicate princess instantly shatters into a million jagged pieces. Utterly bewildered, he reads another entry detailing how Adelina ruthlessly dominated a raucous estate-wide fishing tournament. The prince stares blankly into space as his previous assumptions of her pitiful misery evaporate completely. Gripping the paper tightly, he frantically questions if these bizarre rural exploits actually belong to his royal wife. Stepping closer, Secretary Conrad quietly calls out to the completely paralyzed and dumbfounded royal. Barely hiding his profound amusement, Conrad boldly praises the prince for bringing such a wildly entertaining woman into the palace. Re-evaluating everything, Alexis admits he completely mistook Adelina for a frail and secluded noblewoman. Confronted with undeniable written proof, the stunned prince realizes he dangerously misjudged his own unexpected bride. Driven by sudden and intense curiosity, Alexis decisively announces his immediate plans to visit the detached palace tomorrow. Bowing respectfully, the highly satisfied secretary immediately accepts the prince's long-overdue royal command. A quiet and mysterious night falls over the Grand Kingdom as the royal palace prepares for tomorrow's fateful encounter. Gazing deeply into the night, Alexis bitterly mocks his ruined childhood dreams of finding a perfect destined princess. Despite the chaotic reality, a strange wave of genuine relief washes over him knowing his accidental bride is happily thriving. Clenching his fists, an unfamiliar and complicated emotion violently swirls deep within the prince's troubled chest. He shockingly admits that her complete lack of distress over his absence leaves him feeling incredibly uneasy. Shattering the peaceful morning air, Adelina excitedly cheers on her fluffy alpaca pecorina as they race across the expansive dirt fields. Embracing her hidden royal slow life, she happily revels in the absolute freedom of living as a forgotten decorative bride. A frantic maid suddenly bursts onto the quiet scene, breathlessly screaming that Prince Alexis has unexpectedly arrived. Yanking the reins in sheer panic, Adelina gasps loudly as the horrifying news violently shatters her peaceful bubble. Frantically looking at her dirty farming clothes, she orders the maids to instantly prepare a discreet back-in trance for the royal. Cutting through the chaos, Prince Alexis suddenly steps forward with his dazzling silver blonde hair and noble lilac eyes completely mesmerizing the crowd. Fixing her with a piercing stare, the handsome royal coldly notes that his exiled bride seems to be enjoying herself immensely. Freezing in absolute horror, Adelina realizes the immaculate prince just witnessed her completely wild and undignified display. Crushing embarrassment floods her veins as she imagines his sheer disgust at catching a royal princess dressed as a filthy commoner. Surprising everyone, Alexis smoothly ignores her unsightly appearance and intensely studies the strange, fluffy beast beneath her. Desperate to salvage the brutal awkwardness, Adelina brightly offers the prince a chance to pet the incredibly fluffy alpaca. Dropping his royal guard for just a fraction of a second, Alexis quietly accepts the bizarre invitation and reaches for the soft creature. Exhaling a soft sigh, she stood in the quiet aftermath of the sudden visit. Prince Alexis gently suggested relocating to the villa for a proper cup of tea. Noting the lack of immediate troubles, he admitted his visit stemmed purely from concern over her current state. Trembling with inner dread, she wondered if his discovery of her unkempt appearance would spark his fury. Regret washed over her as she realized Adelina's report had stripped away her chance for a formal greeting. Alexis calmly listed her enthusiastic agricultural pursuits, from planting herbs to planning a full orchard. Stunned by his knowledge, she questioned how her casual orchard chatter with the maids had reached royal ears. Reaching into his coat, the prince produced the undeniable source of his information. Panic seized her as she stared at the detailed activity report documenting her every move. Horrified, she realized her entire history of eccentric behavior lay completely exposed before him. The document mercilessly detailed her transformation of the detached palace's vacant lands into thriving pastures. It even laid bare her orchestration of a lively, decidedly unroyal fishing tournament. Utterly speechless, she stared at the damning evidence of her pastoral life. Dropping into a desperate bow, she vehemently apologized for her highly unorthodox actions. Startled by her sudden submission, Alexis questioned the necessity of her frantic apologies. She lamented that her actions were completely unbefitting for someone acting as the prince's consort. Terrified of international mockery, she envisioned neighboring kingdoms laughing at a royal bride who rode alpacas and tilled fields. Dreading a swift beheading for lowering royal dignity, she was shocked when he simply ordered her to raise her head. A warm smile broke across his face as he confessed he found her agricultural endeavors genuinely interesting. He firmly declared that farming was the essential foundation for sustaining both the people and the nation. His voice carried absolute conviction as he refused to look down upon the vital labor of the earth. Alexis praised the merit of nobility willingly facing the hardships of farm work to truly understand their subjects. Revealing his own plans for a large-scale royal farm, he tasked her with pioneering the project and identifying future challenges. Shock rippled through her as she realized she had deeply misjudged this supposedly naive prince who had recklessly proposed to Ella. Recognizing his well-formed vision, relief flooded her heart as she realized she could continue her cherished rustic lifestyle. Seeing the true future king before her, she eagerly agreed to his only condition of dressing appropriately for future guests. Beaming with newfound respect and joy, she shouted her heartfelt gratitude to his retreating figure. Casting a gentle glance over his shoulder, Alexis promised he would return. Flushed and overwhelmed, she stammered a soft, eager affirmation. Silence fell over the estate as the prince's grand entourage departed as swiftly as they had arrived. Guilt gnawed at her as she realized his brief visit ended without her offering any proper hospitality. Determination ignited in her eyes as she vowed to prepare an unforgettable reception for his next arrival. Her plotting was instantly shattered by a maid's frantic screams echoing across the grounds. The maid breathlessly announced incoming news regarding Prince Alexis. Panic flared anew as the princess momentarily believed he had already returned. Relief washed over the frantic duo as the maid clarified his arrival was scheduled for tomorrow. Seizing the moment, the maid fiercely declared that they must immediately rush into action. Completely bewildered, the princess questioned what exactly they were rushing to accomplish. The maid loudly announced the commencement of intense preparations to properly welcome His Highness. A grueling gauntlet of body massages, face packs, and hair treatments violently commenced to transform the rustic princess into a radiant royal. Feeling a pang of guilt, she admitted to herself that the highly motivated maids were wasting their efforts on her. Sighing quietly, she assumed Prince Alexis held absolutely no interest in her physical appearance. Resigned to her natural look, she confidently decided her current state would have to suffice. Bursting onto the scene, a frantic maid finally located the elusive princess. Startled by the sudden intrusion, the princess spun around in absolute surprise. The determined maid declared they must immediately dress her and apply makeup before Prince Alexis arrived. Meanwhile, a confused voice echoed through the halls asking for the princess's exact whereabouts. Bowing respectfully, the maids formally welcomed Prince Alexis as he made his grand entrance. Stepping into the room, the regal prince fixed his intense gaze upon the newly styled princess. Taking in her dolled-up appearance, he offered only a brief and unremarkable acknowledgement. Disappointed by his subtle reaction, she silently confirmed her suspicion that he truly did not care about her looks. Stepping aside, a maid respectfully announced His Highness to the waiting room. With a proud smirk, Alexis revealed he had brought a personal knight named Dunforth just for her protection. Stepping forward, the imposing knight formally introduced himself to his new charge. Captivated by his striking features, she unconsciously whispered a compliment about his handsome appearance. Confused by her spontaneous gratitude, Alexis bluntly stated there was no need to thank him. Flustered by the misunderstanding, she stammered while trying to hastily explain her overwhelming reaction. She frantically argued that a splendid knight like Dunforth was far too good to guard a peaceful place like the detached palace. Frowning in disbelief, the prince sharply questioned her baffling humility. Commanding her attention, he fiercely reminded her that as his consort she desperately required top-tier protection. Concluding his passionate speech, he confidently and mistakenly addressed her as Magdalena. Freezing in sheer confusion, her mind raced as she desperately wondered who Magdalena actually was. A heavy silence descended upon the room as everyone simultaneously processed the prince's glaring error. Panicking internally, she realized with horror that the prince had completely forgotten her real name. Fearing for his royal dignity, she dreaded the immense embarrassment he would face if someone pointed out the mistake. Thankfully, Adelina swiftly advanced the conversation by expressing deep honor at the prince's concern for her safety. Seizing the momentum, Alexis announced he would immediately commence the official appointment ceremony. Dropping to one knee, Dunforth smoothly declared it an absolute honor to serve such a beautiful lady. Bowing his head low, the handsome knight humbly requested her official permission to attend to her. Caught off guard by the formal protocol, she awkwardly pondered the correct royal response. Gathering her composure, she firmly and officially granted Dunforth the requested permission. Sealing his solemn vow, the knight gently grasped her hand and pressed a reverent kiss to her skin. Blushing furiously, her heart pounded at the completely unexpected intimacy of the knight's gesture. Watching the exchange unfold, Prince Alexis glared silently at the lingering physical contact between them. Irritated by the prolonged kiss, the jealous prince angrily demanded to know how long Dunforth intended to hold her. Before the tension could explode, a delightful aroma suddenly wafted through the heavy atmosphere. Beaming with intense pride, she cheerfully announced that her freshly baked cake was finally ready to eat. Presenting the lavish dessert, she sincerely hoped the sweet treat would perfectly suit their royal tastes. Thrilled by her own culinary success, she proudly declared the cake a proper tribute for her esteemed guest. She internally celebrated her tear-jerking masterpiece, crafted secretly since morning just to thoroughly impress him. Anticipating an inevitable divorce and a new royal consort, the pragmatic princess plotted to secure a hefty alimony for her future. To guarantee her luxurious independence, she fiercely resolved to maintain the prince's absolute favor at all costs. Chewing thoughtfully, Prince Alexis noted the unusual taste and questioned the specific flavor of the baked dessert. Beaming with innocent pride, she cheerfully revealed that the pastry was a freshly made carrot cake. The prince froze mid-chew, his face dropping in utter disbelief as the dreaded ingredient echoed in his mind. Shock completely shattered his regal composure as he loudly demanded a frantic clarification from his bride. Trembling slightly, he stared at the slice and breathlessly verified if she actually meant carrots. Panicking behind the prince, a terrified maid instantly bowed and profusely apologized to the confused princess. The frantic servant desperately confessed that she had completely forgotten to mention his absolute hatred for the orange vegetable. Pure horror washed over the princess as the catastrophic culinary error finally dawned on her. Internally screaming, she viciously berated the maid in her mind for withholding such crucial dietary information. Staring intensely at the dessert, Alexis grimly asked for final confirmation that the dish was indeed forged from carrots. Preparing for her immediate execution, the doomed princess numbly confirmed the fatal ingredient to her husband. Driven by sheer terror, she frantically blabbered that it was a commoner's recipe designed for picky eaters using vegetables from the detached palace's garden. Leaning in with an unreadable expression, the intense prince simply acknowledged her rambling explanation. Closing her eyes in absolute despair, she silently bid a tragic farewell to her painfully short life. Awaiting the imaginary headsman's axe, she desperately prayed her next life wouldn't involve being born into a nearly bankrupt noble family. In her final imagined moments, she wistfully dreamed of a peaceful reincarnation as the pampered daughter of a wealthy household. Shattering her morbid fantasies, the prince unexpectedly extended his plate and politely requested another slice. Stunned by the miraculous pardon, she stared at his outstretched hand in complete and utter bewilderment. A genuine smile graced his lips as he praised her unbelievable ability to make his most hated vegetable taste so delicious. Gazing at her with newfound admiration, Alexis warmly declared that she was a truly unique girl. A sparkling aura surrounded the prince as he looked at her with deep, newfound affection for his unconventional bride. Overcome with emotion, he triumphantly shouted the name Carolina as he loudly praised her. Caught off guard by the completely incorrect name, she hesitantly addressed the mistaken prince. Echoing his confident blunder, the maid's sweat dropped as he passionately repeated the wrong name. Deadpan and utterly unfazed, she flatly corrected him by stating her actual name was Adelina. Recovering from the awkward exchange, she formally bowed and expressed her anticipation for his next visit. Watching his carriage depart, Adelina breathed a massive sigh of relief that he actually loved the dreaded cake. Clenching her fists in triumph, she confidently declared her risky hospitality operation a resounding success. Shattering her peace, Alexis suddenly ordered her to attend next month's welcome party for the Southern envoy. Freezing in her tracks, a wave of pure dread washed over her as she processed his sudden command. Panic flared in her eyes as she frantically repeated the terrifying prospect of attending a major diplomatic event. Overwhelmed by the crushing responsibility, she mentally screamed that fulfilling a royal consort role was entirely impossible for her. Flashing back to before their fateful meeting, the narrative revealed a peaceful border town completely devoid of problems. Riding in his grand carriage, Crown Prince Alexis of the Miracle Kingdom received glowing reports regarding his border inspection. Ignoring the political success, the dramatic prince fiercely declared that he harbored a far more important personal mission. Suddenly screaming for the carriage to halt, he completely startled Guard Knight Gordon and Chief Secretary Conrad. Gazing wildly into the dense woods, Alexis delusionally claimed he heard the beautiful singing voice of his destined princess. Unfazed by his romantic hallucinations, his loyal retainers bluntly shut down his fantasy of a confined princess waiting in a hidden tower. Gordon sharply dismisses the prince's fairy tale fantasies of a driven-out princess hiding with dwarves. He boldly points out that despite the prince's fine qualities, he harbors one fatal flaw. Gordon bluntly criticizes Alexis for clinging to childhood delusions of meeting a destined princess. The stern knight desperately begs the stubborn prince to finally abandon his ridiculous romantic dreams. Furious at the disrespect, Alexis stubbornly defends his lifelong dream and marches off to find his destined bride. Sighing at the prince's exhausting antics, Gordon reluctantly follows his fleeing master. Alexis sprints away, loudly declaring his unwavering belief that a prince must meet his royal destiny. Leaping over obstacles, the prince fiercely questions what could possibly be wrong with believing in true love. The narrative shifts, revealing his worried parents eventually threw a grand ball to force a marriage upon him. Attending the extravagant event under duress, Alexis secretly plotted to slip away at the first opportunity. The grand ballroom buzzed with the lively chatter of countless eager nobles seeking royal favor. Amidst the swirling crowd, a sudden, captivating presence completely stole the young prince's attention. Staring in absolute awe, Alexis believed he had finally encountered his long-awaited destined princess. Confident in his romantic destiny, he eagerly anticipated a flawless happy ending with his chosen bride. The crushing reality of the situation rapidly destroyed his perfect fairy tale fantasy. Panicking in total despair, he realized his beloved destined princess had shockingly eloped with another man. Driven by desperation to protect his royal image, he hastily married her elder sister instead. Following their cold marriage, he swiftly banished his unwanted new bride to a distant detached palace. The prince ruthlessly exiled her because her mere presence painfully reminded him of the runaway Ella. The crushing memories of Ella made looking at Adelina entirely unbearable for his breaking heart. He bitterly recalled Adelina's solemn vow to never demand his royal love. Sitting in his silent study, the troubled prince finally began to question his harsh past decisions. An aide carefully suggested that His Majesty should review the latest reports concerning Lady Adelina. Reluctantly agreeing, Alexis accepted the document and prepared to uncover his forgotten wife's current state. Reading the shocking contents, he firmly decided that their estranged situation could no longer continue. His eyes widened in pure disbelief as he read a baffling entry about her participating in a fishing tournament. Resolving to confront the absurdity directly, the prince firmly decided to finally face his exiled wife. Gathering his resolve, Alexis made his unprecedented first visit to her distant detached palace. Arriving unannounced, he was politely informed by a flustered maid that Lady Adelina was currently out walking. Startled by the unexpected news, the prince listened as the nervous maid begged him to wait inside. Brushing off their frantic apologies, Alexis confidently declared he would find and greet her himself. Striding through the grounds, he internally questioned the maid's overwhelming panic regarding his sudden arrival. Hearing chaotic shouts from the staff, he wondered if his unannounced visit had triggered a massive disaster. Stepping outside, his gaze locked onto an utterly incomprehensible and chaotic scene. The royal prince froze, staring blankly at the completely unroyal spectacle unfolding in the dirt. Watching his bewildered wife tentatively ask if he was her brother, Alexis dryly noted her highly amusing situation. Observing her rustic village attire and strange mount, he finally understood the maid's frantic panic. Unfazed by her profuse apologies, he stepped closer as she nervously offered him a chance to fluff her alpaca. Reaching out, the prince curiously pressed his hand into the impossibly soft fur of the strange beast. A subtle smile graced his lips as he quietly admitted that this bizarre rural lifestyle wasn't so bad. Gordon marvels that one could never guess the princess's true, eccentric nature just by looking at her elegant appearance. He stares in utter disbelief at the undeniable reality of a royal bride dedicating herself entirely to strenuous farm work. The prince fondly recalls how her soft hair spreads beautifully like the gentle, warm shade of milk tea. He remembers the radiant, undeniable kindness shining brightly within her warm, light green eyes. Acknowledging her calm and charming face, he smiles as she cheerfully expresses her heartfelt gratitude. A heavy, contemplative silence falls over the room as the men ponder the uniquely fascinating princess. The conversation swiftly shifts to Lady Adelina's noble lineage and her family's heavily scrutinized history. Investigations confirm she was born into Baron Blair's family before her mother remarried into Viscount Arlen's household. Gordon hesitates slightly before bringing up the incredibly dark rumors surrounding Adelina's mother and elder sister. He reveals grim reports detailing their flashy, wasteful, and highly extravagant spending habits. This reckless financial drain pushed the once proud Arlen Viscount family to the absolute brink of total ruin. Alexis realizes with a heavy heart that Adelina and her stepsister Ella must have suffered immensely under those harsh conditions. A sharp pang of sorrow strikes the prince's chest at the mere mention of his runaway bride's name. Shaking off his lingering grief, he firmly vows to stop neglecting his wife and visit her again immediately. His aide quickly agrees but firmly insists the impulsive prince must send advance notice this time. Acknowledging the advice, Alexis suddenly realizes Adelina still completely lacks a dedicated personal knight. He decisively orders the immediate dispatch of a highly skilled warrior from his own elite royal guard. He coldly calculates that providing a royal knight will secure her honor and desirability even if they eventually divorce. Alexis convinces himself that ensuring her peaceful future is the absolute least he can do to show his royal sincerity. He stubbornly rationalizes that this hollow sense of duty is his sole reason for approaching her. However, a sudden wave of confusing, overpowering emotion completely shatters his carefully constructed logic. He furiously questions the strange, unexplainable feelings rapidly bubbling up within his conflicted heart. His mind flashes back to the agonizing sight of Danforth and Adelina looking suspiciously perfect together. A fiery burst of intense jealousy makes his royal chest feel agonizingly restless and suffocatingly tight. An aide suddenly interrupts his turbulent thoughts by gently suggesting a well-deserved break from his duties. He grimly recalls how the initial crushing shock of Ella's betrayal had completely destroyed his appetite. A servant presents a stunning, immaculately crafted cake meticulously baked by the esteemed court pâtissier. Alexis notes his recent recovery, finally able to stomach sweet treats during his brief royal breaks. Staring at the flawless dessert, he aggressively questions why its perfect refinement feels so incredibly hollow to him. His mind instantly drifts back to Adelina cheerfully presenting her rustic, deeply comforting handmade cake. He realizes he cannot erase the warm memory of his wife's delicious handmade baking from his obsessed mind. An offhand comment about Danforth endlessly bragging about cake instantly grabs the prince's furious attention. The aide casually reveals that Adelina frequently treats Danforth to her incredibly delicious handmade sweets during breaks. Pure shock and outrage violently explode across the prince's face at this devastating culinary revelation. Furious jealousy ignites as he realizes the knight is casually enjoying his wife's cooking while he suffers through official paperwork. Alexis seethes with retroactive rage, suddenly remembering how suspiciously long Danforth's oath kiss lingered on her hand. He frantically tries to rationalize that Danforth's position naturally grants him access to Adelina's cooking, before angrily rejecting the thought. Despite understanding the logic perfectly, his heart burns with an overwhelming, uncontrollable surge of possessiveness. Slamming his paperwork down, the prince abruptly declares all urgent work finished and marches off to reclaim his wife. Ignoring his panicked aide's pleas to send advance notice, Alexis furiously storms out, declaring the visit an absolute emergency. Startled by the sudden departure, the aide nervously confirmed the urgent order as the prince marched away. Alexis reasoned that sending a messenger ahead would only prompt his wife to formally dress up for his arrival. He vividly recalled her elegant, dolled-up appearance that completely masked her true, vibrant nature. The breathtaking sight of her refined beauty during his last visit had left him completely unable to utter a single polite word. Craving authenticity, he desperately wanted to gaze upon her raw, natural self rather than another flawlessly polished facade. Walking purposefully, the conflicted prince silently admitted that even he could not fully comprehend his swirling emotions. He gripped his chest in quiet confusion, desperately wondering why this unconventional woman made his heart race so wildly. Striding through the vibrant gardens, the royal entourage finally arrived at the peaceful grounds of the detached palace. Catching him off guard, Adelina politely but firmly requested that he provide advance notice for any future royal visits. She explained that a simple warning would be a massive help for the scrambling palace staff. Nodding gently, Alexis humbly agreed to be more careful and considerate regarding his spontaneous arrivals. Flashing a warm, welcoming smile, the princess gracefully invited the royal guests inside her rustic domain. Entering the kitchen, Alexis stared in absolute bewilderment as he spotted the elite knight violently kneading bread dough. Gordon completely froze, loudly questioning if the fearsome warrior had entirely forgotten his sacred duty as a royal knight. Ignoring his shocked superiors, the imposing Danforth continued to furiously pummel the sticky dough with absolute martial dedication. Observing the bizarre culinary scene, Alexis realized the outrageous rumors about his knight's newfound domestic bliss were entirely true. His spirits instantly soared as Adelina cheerfully offered him a taste of her freshly made pumpkin pudding. Eagerly accepting a bowl, Gordon marveled at finally tasting the legendary handmade sweets crafted by Lady Adelina. Scooping up a generous bite, the stoic knight popped the vibrant yellow dessert into his mouth. Glowing with culinary delight, Gordon loudly proclaimed that Lady Adelina would make a truly wonderful wife someday. A sharp vein bulged on the prince's forehead as he fiercely reminded his oblivious subordinate that she was already married to him. Oblivious to the royal tension, Adelina innocently tilted her head and asked if His Highness actually enjoyed pumpkins. Flustered by the domestic question, Alexis defensively demanded to know if she was treating him like a picky child. Waving her hands frantically, she explained that her stepsister Ella had always despised vegetables, leading to her cautious inquiry. Calming down, the prince smoothly clarified that he harbored no childish grudges against any vegetable other than the dreaded carrot. Swiftly changing the subject, Alexis warmly patted the empty seat beside him and invited his wife to sit closer. Caught completely off guard by the intimate invitation, Adelina froze and stammered nervously. Gathering her courage, she nervously confessed that she felt entirely unequipped to handle the immense pressure of the upcoming welcome party. Alexis instantly offered to hire a strict royal tutor for her, but she frantically waved the intimidating suggestion away. Shrinking back in fear, the insecure princess timidly suggested that he should simply invite a more suitable lady in her place. Gazing at her trembling form, Alexis silently acknowledged her undeniable beauty when formally dressed up for court. However, his heart pounded fiercely as he wondered why her chaotic, completely natural self captivated him far more than any polished noblewoman. Noticing his intense, unwavering gaze, Adelina nervously asked if something was fundamentally wrong with her. Snapping out of his deep reverie, the enchanted prince quickly shook his head and denied any immediate problems. Softening his gaze, Alexis honestly confessed that the rustic detached palace filled him with an incredibly strange and comforting peace. As he spoke, his mischievous mind playfully echoed her earlier frantic plea for advance notice before his visits. A wicked smirk crossed his mind as he secretly plotted to barge in unannounced again just to witness her adorably troubled expressions. Staring at her flushed cheeks, the prince finally realized that Adelina possessed a uniquely magnetic charm entirely distinct from Ella's. A massive wave of shocking realization washed over him as he discovered the once agonizing memory of Ella no longer pierced his heart. Basking in the warm glow of his wife's presence, the crown prince triumphantly realized that his deep romantic wounds had finally healed. The epic saga blasts forward as the title card for episode 5 focuses squarely on Adelina. A solitary, quiet exhalation breathes life into the unfolding scene. Surrounding Lady Adelina with joyous energy, the maids loudly praise her wonderful, mature transformation into an elegant elder sister. Frustrated by the maid's attempts to make her appearance even flashier, Adelina bitterly reflects that her mundane job as an ornamental wife should have ended at their wedding. Stunned by a sudden royal command, Adelina realizes with dread that she is ordered to attend the upcoming welcome party for the Southern Nations delegation. Flashing back one intense hour, Adelina stands before her strict new tutor, the Countess, marking the grueling start of her queen's education. Snapped back to the exhausting present, a weary Adelina sighs heavily and wonders why her life had to take this miserable turn. Recalling her past offer for the prince to freely take a concubine or mistress, she wonders why he hasn't found a capable replacement yet. Doubting her own hopeful assumptions, Adelina dismisses the thought of him actually remaining completely devoted to her. As the Countess sternly reminds her that diplomacy relentlessly judges her dignity as a princess consort, the prince suddenly chimes in to compliment her new hairstyle. Taking commanding charge of the situation, the prince firmly announces he will join today's rigorous lesson. Overwhelmed by the crushing pressure, Adelina quietly despairs over her absolute inability to fulfill the heavy duties of a crown princess consort. A heavy, pregnant silence hangs sharply between them as unspoken tensions rapidly rise. With her hair safely restored to its usual style, Adelina nervously questions the progression of her arduous royal training. Showering her with overwhelming praise, The Countess applauds Lady Adelina's splendid etiquette as perfectly fitting for the prince's chosen bride. Maintaining a flawlessly composed facade, Adelina gracefully bows and accepts the Countess's high honors. Adelina grimly recalls how her desperate childhood attempts to avoid her mother's merciless strikes successfully forged her flawless etiquette. Driving the rigorous lesson forward, the Countess confidently declares that it is finally time to practice dancing. Searching the grand room with a sharp gaze, the Countess formally requests a capable dance partner for Lady Adelina. Gripped by sudden, agonizing panic, Adelina dreads the essential noble requirement of dancing, knowing it is far from her strong point. Seizing the romantic opportunity, the Countess eagerly urges His Highness to take the lead and offer his hand to his hesitant bride. Desperate for a highly skilled partner to mask her inevitable flaws, Adelina pointedly ignores the prince's awkward, attention-seeking cough. Bypassing her royal husband entirely, Adelina shockingly asks the noble Lord Danforth to serve as her dance partner. Confident that a man of high nobility like Danforth can effortlessly cover her mistakes, Adelina watches him humbly accept the great honor. Shattering the comfortable arrangement, the prince aggressively steps forward and calls out to her using the completely wrong name, Nidarina. Flexing his undeniable authority as her husband, the prince fiercely demands she take his outstretched hand. Startled by his sudden, intense physical approach, Adelina lets out a terrified yelp as she shrinks back. Watching the imposing couple unite on the floor, the ecstatic onlookers loudly praise how perfectly fitting they look together. Basking in the magnificent romantic display, the awestruck crowd enthusiastically dubs the royal pair as two souls fated to meet. Disheartened by his constant failure to remember her real name, Adelina internally rejects the fabricated, suffocating narrative of their destined romance. Triggered by the heavy word, fated, Adelina's mind drifts back to a crucial, heartbreaking memory from her past. Standing invisibly in the shadows at a grand ball, a younger Adelina watches the prince share a magical, fateful first dance with Ella. Mesmerized by the flawless, radiant couple, Adelina admits that anyone witnessing them would believe Ella and the prince were truly bound by fate. The painful memory vividly plays out as the perfect pair glides effortlessly across the brightly illuminated ballroom floor. Surrounded by swooning, desperate admirers fighting for the prince's attention, the vibrant, chaotic energy of the ball completely overwhelms the scene. Heartbroken by the stark, undeniable contrast, Adelina miserably accepts her pathetic role as a mere spectator and side character in their grand romance. Returning forcefully to the painful present, she firmly believes that the only woman who truly belongs in the prince's arms is Ella. Sensing her sudden, dramatic shift in demeanor, the prince abruptly halts their dance and concernedly asks what is wrong. Filled with quiet, crushing sorrow, Adelina mentally concludes that the woman held in his powerful embrace should definitely not be her. The heavy, suffocating emotional weight of her realization lingers endlessly as the tense dance comes to a poignant, silent standstill. Stumbling mid-step, Adelina cries out in pain as she suddenly twists her foot. Reacting with lightning reflexes, Prince Alexis swiftly catches her falling frame before she hits the floor. Suspended in a dramatic dip, the two lock eyes in an intense, stunned silence. Questioned about her sudden absent-mindedness, Adelina stammers that she was merely startled by the strange situation. Overwhelmed by her gorgeous dress, she doubts her place beside His Highness and fears she can never truly replace Ella. Dreading the upcoming party, she worries the attending nobles will relentlessly mock her presence as casting pearls before swine. Hearing the prince chuckle softly, she bitterly assumes he completely agrees with her harsh self-assessment. Regaining his composure, Alexis gently waves off her anxious, self-deprecating thoughts. Smiling warmly, he declares that she looks beautiful enough without needing any flashy jewels. Caught completely off guard by his sudden praise, Adelina stares at him in wide-eyed shock. Quickly recovering her emotional defenses, she coolly dismisses his sweet words as highly skilled flattery. The prince's playful demeanor instantly vanishes as a deeply serious expression crosses his handsome face. Gazing intently into her eyes, he firmly insists that right now he sees absolutely no one else but her. Leaning dangerously close, he boldly reminds his flustered wife that they are already irrevocably bound together by fate. Melting slightly under his intense gaze, Adelina softly agrees with his overwhelming romantic declaration. Despite knowing she lacks the perfect qualities of a princess consort, she fiercely resolves to keep fighting. Staring back at him with renewed determination, she vows to act in a way that proves her worthy of standing by his side. Sweeping her effortlessly across the floor, Alexis flawlessly resumes their elegant dance practice. Impressed by her graceful movements, the prince proudly compliments her excellent dancing skills. He confidently assures her that with such refined skill, she will definitely avoid making any grave blunders at the party. Relieved by his vague but passing evaluation, Adelina smiles happily at the hard-earned praise. Warning her not to let her guard down for the actual day, he shockingly addresses her by the name Fiorina. Freezing midstep, Adelina's heart sinks as the agonizing sting of being called the wrong name hits her. Masking her deep disappointment with a tight smile, she awkwardly agrees with his commanding statement. As the etiquette tutor abruptly announces her next lesson, Adelina feels relieved that the prince's blunder prevented her from exposing her true feelings. Praising the tutor's impeccable timing, she bitterly reflects that a truly fated partner would at least remember her real name. Accepting her inescapable duty, she resolves to play her part perfectly since absolutely no one else can take her place. Staring him down, she fiercely demands that he not blame her if she ultimately fails at the grand event. On the fateful day of the party, majestic horse-drawn carriages arrive at the towering, brilliantly lit estate. A booming voice commands the room, proudly presenting His Highness Prince Alexis and Her Highness Princess Consort Adelina to the eager crowd. Descending the grand staircase, the royal couple makes a breathtaking, show-stopping entrance into the ballroom. The massive crowd of aristocrats turns entirely silent, gazing up at the magnificent pair in sheer awe. Awed whispers rapidly ripple through the hall, highly praising Adelina's perfectly modest dress and elegantly unified pearl accessories. Misinterpreting the frantic whispering, a panicking Adelina fears her simple dress choice is causing a massive scandal. Leaning in closely, she nervously asks His Highness if her appearance looks strangely out of place. Glancing down at his worried bride, Alexis immediately assures her that she looks the exact opposite of odd. With a calm and steady voice, he confidently orders her not to worry about the crowd's relentless gossiping. Guiding her forward, he calmly explains that being stared at is just another part of the royal job she will soon master. Looking up at his flawless profile, Adelina silently admits that Prince Alexis looks incredibly wonderful today. Watching him effortlessly command the room, she realizes that as a royal since birth, he is completely accustomed to the suffocating spotlight. Looking intently at his bride, Prince Alexis firmly declares his deep respect for her. Staring back in wide-eyed silence, Adelina is completely stunned by his unexpected confession. Flustered, she stammers that no one has ever said that, prompting a concerned Alexis to ask if he sounded rude. Interrupting their moment, an imposing older man approaches to offer royal congratulations on their recent marriage. Recognizing the distinguished guest instantly, Adelina realizes he is the esteemed ambassador representing the southern nation. Gesturing with graceful elegance, Prince Alexis steps forward to formally introduce his bride to the foreign dignitary. The seasoned ambassador gazes upon Adelina with a calm, deeply appraising expression. Bowing respectfully, the ambassador warmly states that it is an absolute honor to meet the new princess. Stepping up beside her husband, Adelina confidently introduces herself as the crown princess consort. A tense but highly respectful silence settles over the grand hall as the powerful trio stands face to face. Engaging in diplomatic conversation, the ambassador reveals that a legendary ancient ruin was recently excavated in his home country. Intrigued, Adelina enthusiastically asks if he means the Phantom City founded by a legendary sorcerer who commanded countless demons. Impressed by her knowledge, the ambassador confirms the rumor and curiously asks how Her Highness is so familiar with their history. Delving deeper into the lore, Adelina expertly explains a popular theory connecting the traditional dish shawarma to a busy ancient sorcerer. Watching her dominate the conversation, Prince Alexis marvels in pure astonishment at her intricate knowledge of a foreign land. Realizing her strict etiquette tutor could never have taught her this, he concludes she voraciously absorbed this knowledge on her own. Observing her poised demeanor, Alexis notes that Adelina's dress is surprisingly modest compared to the other flashy young ladies. Acknowledging her lack of an overwhelming aura, he simultaneously recognizes the powerful, mysterious presence and hidden beauty she exudes. He gazes at her affectionately, likening her to a small, dazzlingly radiant jewel shining brilliantly in her own unique way. Across the ballroom, aristocratic women whisper excitedly as they notice Lady Adelina speaking flawlessly with the foreign ambassador. Eager to finally meet the new princess consort, the noblewomen chatter eagerly about her highly anticipated first public appearance. Concluding their successful exchange, the ambassador warmly invites Adelina to visit his country, proving she is no mere small jewel. Staring intently at his bride, Alexis realizes the consort he married merely as a stand-in is vastly exceeding all expectations. Smiling with immense pride, Prince Alexis highly praises Adelina for her undeniable diplomatic triumph. Later in her room, Adelina writes a letter to Ella detailing how her diplomacy succeeded through bonding over ancient ruins. Recalling the grand event, she notes that despite standing right beside him, Prince Alexis was constantly swarmed by popular foreign ladies. Confident in his irresistible charm, she enthusiastically predicts that a woman who truly meets his high romantic standards will appear soon. Plotting her eventual escape, she firmly vows to gracefully exit the stage and eagerly collect her alimony when his fated partner arrives. Dreaming of absolute freedom, she happily anticipates lazily enjoying a royal NEET life until her inevitable replacement takes over. Her peaceful daydream is violently shattered when a massive, towering stack of letters is suddenly slammed onto her table. Shocked by the intimidating pile, Adelina is horrified to learn that every single letter is a formal tea party invitation addressed exclusively to her. Panicking uncontrollably, she desperately laments her terrible lack of socializing skills to her stern attendant. Her attendant strictly warns her to obediently accept an invitation from the powerful Duchess of Raglaz, a feared shadow figure in noble circles. Overwhelmed by the crushing pressure, Adelina cries out that managing high society diplomacy alone without the prince's support is impossible. Slumping down onto the wooden table in total defeat, she buries her face in her arms as her anxiety rapidly skyrockets. Stepping quietly into the room, Prince Alexis notices her deep distress and gently asks if she is all right. Looking up nervously, Adelina tearfully confesses her deep fear of socializing and heavily doubts her ability to converse with highborn nobles. Listening intently to her worries, Alexis gazes down at his anxious bride with a soft, deeply understanding expression. He gently admits that compared to other refined high society ladies, her unique behavior could indeed be considered a bit eccentric. Reassuring her with immense warmth, he passionately declares that her natural, genuine smile possesses a unique charm far more beautiful than any jewel. Locking eyes with her, Lord Danforth urges Adelina to never forget his sincere words of deep respect. Stunned by his flawless flattery, Adelina desperately wonders how a man with such perfect looks and status exists. Brushing off her lingering shock, she mentally crowns the charming noble as utterly invincible and regains her composure. Determined to simply make a fool of herself and lower expectations, Adelina orders her maid to prioritize an invitation from the intimidating Duchess of Raglaz. Across the sprawling estate, a loyal servant quickly informs the formidable Duchess of Raglaz that the new princess will attend today's tea party. Intrigued by the sudden confirmation, the Duchess narrows her eyes and coldly acknowledges the highly anticipated news. Reflecting on Prince Alexis's notoriously disastrous history with romance, the Duchess bitterly dismisses the fairy tale narrative surrounding his new marriage. Refusing to trust baseless rumors praising Adelina as a wise consort, the cynical noblewoman prepares to mercilessly judge the girl herself. Wielding her immense royal authority, the Duchess fiercely resolves to expose the newlywed princess and determine if she possesses true noble qualities. Stepping into the elegant tea party, Adelina immediately faces a swarm of calculating noblewomen formally greeting their new princess. Scrutinizing her plain appearance with sharp, judgmental glares, the aristocratic ladies silently prepare to tear her apart. Shattering the polite silence, one bold noblewoman leans in and shamelessly asks the flustered princess how things are at night. Panicking over the sudden plunge into scandalous tea party love talk, Adelina sweats nervously as she processes the intimate question. Misunderstanding the spicy inquiry entirely, she innocently admits that she sometimes sleeps closely beside him. Continuing her catastrophic blunder, Adelina happily explains that brushing his hair and petting him deeply relaxes him. Gasping in absolute horror at the shameless bedroom details, the blushing ladies reel as Adelina describes throwing him out when he throws a tantrum. Shattering their scandalous delusions, Adelina cheerfully reveals she is merely talking about her pet animal, Pecorina. Listening from the shadows, the horrified Duchess tragically misunderstands the conversation and brands Adelina's corruptive influence a national crisis. Stepping gracefully into the sunlight, Duchess Raglaz formally announces her dominating presence to the startled crowd. Bracing herself against the overwhelming aura, Adelina politely thanks the fearsome Duchess of Raglaz for the prestigious invitation. Sensing fresh blood, the scheming noblewomen eagerly offer up the princess's incredibly interesting stories to the arriving matriarch. Fixing Adelina with an icy, penetrating glare, the Duchess slowly demands to hear the scandalous tales for herself. Springing her trap, Duchess Raglaz coldly orders the nervous princess to reveal exactly how she spends her royal days. Anticipating a pathetic answer about empty-headed luxury, the Duchess silently vows to thoroughly humiliate the girl in front of high society. Trembling under the crushing aristocratic pressure, Adelina hesitates as the ruthless women silently agree she has no place among them. Shattering their elegant expectations, Adelina proudly announces that she recently harvested fresh tomatoes directly from the mansion's garden. Met with utter confusion, she awkwardly clarifies that tomatoes are simply delicious red vegetables. Leaning forward with sparkling eyes, the excited princess eagerly quizzes the stunned aristocrats on the perfect time to harvest the crop. Geeking out completely, she passionately explains that a deep red color and a curled calyx mean the fruit will detach with a mere touch. Igniting with pure culinary passion, Adelina happily launches into a detailed explanation of her highly recommended cooking methods. A heavy, suffocating silence violently crashes down upon the garden as the shocked noblewomen stare blankly at the rambling princess. Snapping back to brutal reality, Adelina bites her lip in sheer panic, realizing she just blabbered way too much about farming. Sweat pouring down her face, she stares in terror at the incredibly stern, unreadable expression frozen on Duchess Raglaz's face. The agonizing tension stretches into an eternity as the entire tea party remains completely frozen in absolute disbelief. Frantic whispers suddenly erupt through the elegant garden as the astonished ladies process the princess's bizarre agricultural outburst. Glaring intensely at the trembling girl, the noblewomen inch closer, their eyes burning with a strange, overwhelming intensity. Cornered by the advancing aristocrats, Adelina mentally prepares for absolute ruin as everyone reels from her massive social blunder. Shattering her terrifying expectations, the ladies crowd around her with shining eyes, aggressively demanding to know how she possesses such vast knowledge. Completely enchanted by her unique rustic hobbies, the noblewomen eagerly beg the bewildered princess to teach them her farming secrets. Stunned by the miraculous turn of events, Adelina watches in sheer relief as even the fearsome Duchess displays a genuine, sparking interest. Trembling with extreme anxiety, Aurelina completely regrets her bizarre tomato outburst. Convinced she thoroughly offended the Duchess, she mentally prepares for the devastating consequences of her social rudeness. Crushed by feelings of failure, she bitterly apologizes for ruining her recent progress with the prince. Meanwhile, Prince Alexis stands quietly in his royal quarters. Brushing off an eager noble's request to bring his wife to dinner, Alexis mutters a completely non-committal reply. Reflecting on her massive success at the recent banquet, he realizes how incredibly noisy his surroundings have suddenly become. Surprised by the massive influx of invitations, he learns she was forced to attend Duchess Raglaz's intense tea party today. Deeply concerned for his socially anxious wife, he debates rushing over to check on her well-being immediately. A sudden, sharp knock echoes loudly through his office, instantly breaking his train of thought. Glancing up in absolute confusion, he firmly notes that no official visitors were scheduled for today. The heavy wooden door swings open to dramatically reveal the imposing figure of Duchess Raglaz. Staring him down with an unreadable expression, the formidable noblewoman calmly greets Prince Alexis. Immediately sensing trouble, Alexis questions if his socially awkward wife caused an incident during the gathering. Smirking slightly, the Duchess notes that he has definitely found himself an incredibly interesting lady. Narrowing his eyes, Alexis demands to know exactly what she means by that incredibly vague statement. She sharply details Aurelina's shocking agricultural knowledge and her complete lack of traditional aristocratic nobility. Fearing the absolute worst, Alexis silently worries that the powerful matriarch is moving to condemn his wife. Knowing Aurelina cannot survive high society's wrath alone, he anticipates a brutal social isolation campaign against her. Springing fiercely to her defense, he proudly reveals she actively builds and visits fields near the detached palace. Refusing to back down, he fiercely declares that his beloved wife has absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. He passionately praises her broad perspective, cementing her status as a true symbol of their great nation. With unwavering conviction, he honors her genuine dedication to actively understanding the common people's daily hardships. Rejecting the cowardly path of lying, he chooses to proudly defend her bizarre actions with all his absolute might. Staring down the terrifying Duchess, Alexis firmly vows to sink with Aurelina if society tries to oust her. Suddenly dropping her icy demeanor, The Duchess warmly commends the prince for growing up so much. Caught completely off guard by her genuine praise, Alexis humbly accepts the profound royal honor. Bluntly admitting her past fears, she reveals she thought he would foolishly choose an empty-headed beauty. Declaring Aurelina the absolute wisest lady she has ever met, she fiercely commands him to never let her go. Teasing him to tone down the romance, she playfully urges him to comfort the completely terrified princess. Stunned by the miraculous turn of events, Alexis realizes she fully approved of Aurelina from the very start. Understanding the true nature of her surprise visit, he recognizes she merely wanted to test his royal resolve. Filled with burning, renewed determination, he immediately sets off to find and fiercely comfort his beloved wife. Echoing powerfully in his mind, the Duchess's strict command to never let his wife go shakes Prince Alexis to his core. Reflecting deeply on his past behavior, he admits that the older version of himself would have handled the political situation with far more detached cleverness. Realizing he recklessly abandoned his usual caution to protect Aurelina, a startling revelation begins to dawn upon the troubled prince. Staring blankly ahead, the intense weight of his sudden emotional growth silently washes over his royal composure. Gripped by overwhelming emotions, he stands frozen in the quiet hallway as his heart races uncontrollably. Processing the profound shift in his royal priorities, he takes a deep breath to steady his chaotic racing thoughts. Questioning his very identity, the stunned prince quietly wonders if his fierce devotion to Aurelina means he has fundamentally changed. Stepping decisively forward, Alexis sets out to find his distressed bride and comfort her troubled heart. To his absolute shock, another man's gentle voice softly begs the weeping princess not to shed any more tears. Standing closely by her side, the charming Lord Dunforth looks down at the tearful princess with deep, genuine concern. Overwhelmed by her perceived social failures, a devastated Aurelina continues to sob heavily despite the noble's kind reassurance. Blazing with sudden, fierce possessiveness, Alexis firmly resolves that he must be the only man allowed to wipe away his wife's tears. Stepping aggressively into the room, Prince Alexis makes his commanding presence known as Dunforth respectfully acknowledges his sudden arrival. Turning her tear-stained face toward her husband, a guilt-ridden Aurelina frantically stammers out a desperate apology for her embarrassing behavior. Interrupting her anxious rambling, Alexis calmly reveals that he has already met with Duchess Raglaz and heard the entire story. Shattering her terrifying delusions, the prince warmly informs his shocked bride that the fearsome Duchess actually liked her very much. Gazing up at him in pure disbelief, Aurelina questions the miraculous news as Alexis gently asks why he would ever lie to her. Weeping fresh tears of immense relief, she confesses her absolute certainty that the silent Duchess completely despised her rustic manners. Looking deeply into her eyes, the devoted prince gently urges her to stop pushing herself and never pretend to be someone she is not. Praising her unique spirit, Alexis passionately declares that she is most charming when joyfully humming with her alpaca or earnestly kneading bread dough. Stunned by his incredibly specific and deeply affectionate compliments, Aurelina stares at her husband in total, wide-eyed bewilderment. Blushing fiercely under his intense gaze, the flustered princess struggles to process the overwhelming romantic tension enveloping them. Trembling slightly, she opens her mouth to respond as the heavy atmosphere between the married couple reaches a breathless peak. Utterly destroying the beautiful romantic mood, a beaming Aurelina excitedly announces that Lord Dunforth recently told her the exact same encouraging words. Crushed by the sudden mention of his handsome rival, Alexis reels in utter shock as Aurelina happily thanks both men for their kindness. Completely missing her husband's internal agony, the rejuvenated princess declares that she can finally refresh herself and move forward without any worries. Pivoting enthusiastically toward the other noble, Aurelina completely ignores her frozen husband and eagerly asks Lord Dunforth for his immediate assistance. Bonding instantly over agricultural plans, Dunforth happily agrees to help her redo the tea party by serving her freshly harvested tomato canapes. Watching them happily conspire together, a deeply conflicted Alexis struggles to balance his relief over her returning smile with his boiling romantic jealousy. Flashing her husband a brilliantly innocent smile, Aurelina casually invites the fuming prince to join their lively planning session if he wishes. Grinding his teeth in silent fury, Alexis mentally screams that he is supposed to be her exclusively beloved husband, not a mere third wheel. Glaring intensely at the laughing pair, the deeply jealous prince finds it unbearably frustrating that his own wife seemingly prefers Lord Dunforth's company over his.